Hey, so we're jumping into a new topic, which is the Council of the Gods. Basically, the Canaanite culture, the Ugaritic scriptures, and I was following up on a request by a subscriber to my channel by the name of Paris Washington. 7 months ago, he sent me a request, and he asked me to start looking into this matter. One of the websites he gave me is actually, it's about veganism or vegetarianism, but it gets into this argument about Elion being compared to the Canaanite god El. Now that website, I will eventually post a link to it, and this is going to be something that I'm going to have to go over in a painstaking detail and manner. I'll probably be doing blogs on this, but I did want to do this as a video series simply because Paris had asked me if I could start a video series on this. And this happens to be kind of in line with my general approach at defense of the Old Testament scriptures and kind of coming against this the new documentary hypothesis kind of approach. And so that was one of the websites. One of the other websites he gave was, let me see here. Some forums where there's some people talking about this concept. And so basically, I did tell him that it was going to take a while for me to get to this. Here we go. There's another website from Celestial Torah. So I'm going to be going over these, and this is basically the same website on vegetarianism, which I have nothing against. I have nothing against vegetarianism. But so those are the websites that he was particularly interested in getting a response on. But what I am also going to do is, in the process of this study, which is going to be probably a multi-year response, kind of in the same manner that I'm doing a multi-year response to the Who Wrote the Bible series, just because of the fact that I do these things on my spare time, while holding down a job and running a house or whatever. So basically, I started looking into, on my phone here, on my Kindle, I started looking into this sample of the Ugaritic text. This particular one is a more recent translation. This is, I think, copyright 2012, I believe. Originally published in 1978, first edition, but updated in 2012 by Michael D. Coogan and Mark S. Smith. This is called Stories from Ancient Canaan, second edition. And basically an updated version of the clay tablets from Ugarit. And basically these are the religious texts, well, most of these are the religious texts of the Canaanites. And so the main gods being primarily El, Baal, Ashtoreth. As I get into this, I'll probably get more of the pronunciations correct. And so some of the basic things, like just in reading the sample that I downloaded from Kindle, I've already noticed that the introduction is not surprisingly liberal. So I'm probably going to do a bit of response to the introduction of this book in the long run. You know, these are like things that are possibilities. I noticed in researching the web that I came across a lot of Mormons that are talking about this issue, Council of Gods, which makes sense because that's has a lot to do with their theology. There's the Backyard Professor, which seems like a very nice guy. I've seen a lot of his videos before, and I might be watching some of his videos and offering my alternative explanations, and probably learn a lot by watching his videos as well. And of course, there's another gentleman on YouTube who is supposedly, well, I say supposedly, I mean, he's pretty much the expert that everybody looks to in regard to this whole idea of the Council of Gods. Let me look him up real quick. I'm trying to remember his name. It's Michael. Starts with an H. Let's see here. Council of the Gods YouTube. Council of the Gods. Michael H. Okay. Michael Heiser. Heiser, yeah. And so I listened to a 2-hour video interview with him on this other channel by TruthSeekah. Just subscribe to that gentleman. Who was discussing this topic with Michael Heiser, and he brought up a lot of interesting topics. The other thing that I want to get into is the translations, specifically of Deuteronomy 32 and Psalm 82. Psalm 82 being the primary, you know, I don't know what you call it, one of the primary, and Deuteronomy 32 being the other one, with those two scriptures kind of building this idea of a council of gods. But in going over this topic with another YouTuber, actually she's on Vimeo now, Brain Audi has done some videos recently on the translation of Psalm 82, which vary a little bit from what Michael Heiser is saying. So I'm going to be looking into that because I think I agree partially more with Brain Audi's interpretation of Psalm 82. However, in the end, it seems that everyone seems to be coming to the same conclusions, regardless of the translations. So I'll discuss that because it's sort of at times a semantics issue. So yeah, this is just sort of me throwing out a bunch of ideas right now. Just so that you can kind of get a taste of, you know, how I approach these long videos. Because otherwise I'm just, you know, doing these things on my own, and I'm coming up with my own questions. But if you have certain questions about this topic that you would be interested in me looking at the particular angle, because there's so many different directions that you can come at this. And I'm going to try to hit them all over a long series of videos. I noticed that the Backyard Professor, he's got a long series of videos on this, and I'll probably do the same thing. It's just kind of like my Zoroastrianism series, you know, where I discuss the reasons why I do not believe that Zoroastrianism influenced Judaism in regard to monotheism and other ideas. It's just like this continuing series that never ends. or it just sort of takes a respite for a while. So yeah, I'm just letting everybody know, yeah, I'm going to be getting into this. This is going to be probably consuming a lot of my studies. I do also want to, however, break this up with, finishing up the response on the Who Wrote the Bible series that Robert Beckford put together. And at the same time, try to introduce some new ideas as well. Other videos. But let me just go over some of the things I've written down on some of my initial things that I want to look into. Main goal seems to be that that the Hebrew religious ideas were not ripped off from Canaanite pagan religions. So that seems to be the goal of Michael Heiser, a lot of other people. Which is what I'm going to be showing as well, is that these ideas were not spawned, or, well, you can't say that religions don't influence each other. They all influence each other, but I'll get into the various reasons of how we approach it, and as far as like from a theistic point of view. Then there is a claim that the god El, the Canaanite god El, and the Hebrew god Adonai, or as the scholars call him, Yahweh, are the same God. Or, in other words, actually no, they would do that comparison with Baal and Yahweh. But what I was writing here was that there's a claim that El, as in El Elyon, and Adonai are two separate gods in the Hebrew Scriptures. So we get into that, and we'll talk about that, about why that's not really the case. And then specifically that El Elyon and Yahweh are two gods, with El Elyon being the Most High and Yahweh His Son. So this is the liberal kind of approach to the Canaanite religion and how they believe it affects the Hebrew religion. Okay, then there is a certain assumption regarding about the Council of the Gods. So we'll have to get into that assumption and discuss that at great length. And then there are the various texts that we're going to get into their translations, which is Deuteronomy 32:17. This is one I'll just right off the top of my head, where Michael Heiser is discussing how demons are supposedly called Elohim. That I'm going to have to get into, because in looking at the translation, it doesn't specifically, I need to get into Hebrew. I need to look at those various things. There's reasons, and the reasons why it may be translated that way, and the reason why it might not be translated that way. So that has to be studied, and the grammar, the Hebrew grammar rules, and all that need to be taken into consideration. I need to look at the oldest manuscripts and how the words lay out on the page. If they're in the first column and they make their way over to the second column, the middle column, or whatever, how they look on the page at times has a lot to do with how they're being translated. And hopefully I'll do a little more editing in this next video series so that I can show you the actual pictures of those manuscripts and kind of, lay it out a little more, give you a little bit better view of the landscape. 1 Samuel chapter 28 verse 13, Michael Heiser is stating that the spirit of Samuel is referred to as Elohim. So this is an interesting little verse, and I'm going to study this because I don't know I don't see any reason to disagree with it at this point, but I have to study it and look at the Hebrew and look at the language and really get into that to see if I can verify it or if there's any questions in regard to that. You see, this is the process of truth seeking. This is the process of skeptically asking yourself, is it true? Is it not true? Question everything, and hold on to that which is true. There's a scripture in there somewhere. I have to look that up. Genesis chapter 35, verse 7. He states, Michael Heiser, that is, or Heiser? Am I pronouncing his name wrong? He's a really brilliant gentleman, brilliant scholar, accomplished a lot, and I think we're so lucky to have a gentleman like this doing all this hard study and devoting his life to things as the topics like these, and so. So basically, he states in Genesis chapter 35, verse 7, he says a plural verb is used to designate possibly gods. Is Jacob referring to the angels in chapter 32? So this is another thing we need to look at. So these are all things that need to be looked at one by one and verified. So then we need to get into the whole topic of gods, okay? And how do we define gods? So right off the bat, I could just say, fallen angels, quote-unquote gods. So we'll get into that. Also, monotheism, the concept of monotheism, needs to be defined specifically, and I like what Michael Heiser has to say about this. He says that basically the modern term of monotheism is not sufficient in defining the Hebrew religion or even that of the Canaanite religion, and for that matter, what we need to do is get into a proper understanding of what monotheism is and how we're going to define monotheism. And so then, I mentioned this before. Psalm 82, Deuteronomy 32, both of those need to be looked at in the Greek and in the Hebrew and possibly any other early language, Latin, maybe, I don't know. So we'll take a look at those in great detail somewhere along the line. I'm not making any promises sooner than later. I'm just saying this is going to be a long study, folks. It's going to be a long study, but it's going to be so rewarding for all of us. And then of course, I'm going to be reading the Ugaritic text from this translation here on the Kindle during this whole period of time. I imagine it'll take me about a year, maybe more. I don't know. I haven't seen the page numbers yet, so we'll see how long that takes. And then reading and rereading and possibly even starting to learn a little bit of Ugarit. Who knows? For now, I'm going to have to bow my head to the scholars that do know the Ugarit and what they're saying it says, until I can kind of piece together some of it and see if it makes sense of what they're saying. So then we have this whole idea of cognates, what the liberals term as cognate words from Ugarit to Hebrew. And a cognate is basically in linguistics words that have a common origin. The learned, basically, the word in Ugarit is being the same word in Hebrew, but that's basically what we're talking about here, and saying, are these words really cognates? Are they really cognates? Or is there a reason to believe that they're not? And so we get into that. So this is a lot of information. Again, I want to thank YouTuber Paris Washington for bringing this up, and this falls right in line with my. I just finished up a blog series on the angel of the Lord. It's a response to a radical critic on his WordPress blog. And if you're interested in reading that, I'm going to put the link below. And enjoy. God bless you all. Keep seeking truth. I look forward to my next video. Peace.